Hello, welcome back to another channel. Welcome back to another video, and today I am doing the AuthorTube Self-Appreciation Tag, which was created by CassTeaElle, and I was tagged by Savy. So let's go. So this is my first time filming with my new tabletop tripod, which I bought with Patreon funds. So my patrons, thank you so much. I would not have this more convenient setup, this much more convenient setup without you guys. First question is, what are you best at in your writing life? What am I best at in my writing life? Plotting. Plotting and world building. I can world build and plot for days and days and days. The current whip that I'm working on, the Magical Girl story, I started writing the story because I thought I was done plotting, and then I thought, wait, there's more. So I scrapped it, and then I plotted some more, and I I built the world up some more. And I was like, okay, I got this. And I started writing again. And then I thought, but the magic system could be harder. So now I'm working on how I can make the magic system harder. And it's a disease. I don't know if it's something that if it counts as doing something well, if it actually keeps me from writing, but I'm good at it. Number 2. What is your favorite scene in your current whip, and why are you proud of it? If you'd like to read a part of the scene during the tag, go for it. I'm not ready to share anything from my current whip yet because it's still very much in its first draft stage, and it's not good. It's not good yet. But what I will do is I will share one of my favorite scenes from Fairy Tales and Space Dreams, which comes out on the 15th. It's really hard to choose a favorite because there are a lot of scenes that I like, but I decided to go with one that's pretty short in the interest of time. This one is from The Cosmic Adventures of Sophie Zotilde. And it happens pretty early on, so there's no spoilers. And at this point, my main character, River Sung, is talking to a sheriff. The sheriff, a doughy, sad-eyed man, stepped out of the car. "What's your name, kid?" "River Sung," I said. "I heard there was a spectacle being made hereabouts." He approached me now. "Was that you?" "Yes." Then I added, "Sort of." The sheriff leaned forward and squinted at me. "Aren't you the kid I had to talk to a couple months ago?" I shrugged. It wasn't my fault he forgot. I'm one of 3 Asians who lives in this town. One of them is a girl. "You weren't the one who accidentally tripped the ring bearer at Mrs. Crabapple's wedding a couple months ago?" "I wasn't there. You're probably thinking of Victor Cho." I was definitely the one who accidentally tripped the ring bearer at Mrs. Crabapple's wedding. The ring had rolled away, and I'd apologized profusely and offered to retrieve it, but long story short, the whole debacle ended with my dress pants ripped and the ring bearer's finger broken, and I'd had to be escorted outside. The sheriff sighed. "All right, where are your parents?" "I'm not a minor," I said. "I'm 22. He raised his eyebrows as if I had just told him I was a unicorn. "Well, he patted me on the shoulder. "Just don't start any more trouble, okay?" So yeah, I really like that because I don't know, River is a snarky guy. He's really smart and really funny, and he knows when to not take things too seriously. He's one of those people that you don't really have to tell to lighten up, I guess. And I think that scene that I wrote kind of... Sorry about that. There was a tornado warning and my phone stopped recording. So, yes, what was I saying? All those reasons are why I picked that scene, because I think it displays those things pretty well early on, or something like that. I forgot what I said. Number 3, what is your favorite thing you've ever written and why? Once again, this is really, really tough because all 6 of the favorite things I've written are in this book. There's a reason why, like, there was going to be so many more short stories in here, but I went through 2 rounds of beta reading, and each round I cut stories, and these 6 stories are the ones that made it. So I can't pick a favorite, but I can pick one to show. I'm going to do Rapunzel the Night Maiden, because that seems to be a lot of people's favorites, and I'm going to choose one of my favorite scenes where there's Rapunzel, her mother, and Sir Richard, the knight that discovers her. So at this point, Rapunzel is trying to convince her mother to let Sir Richard go adventuring with her, and her mother's not really... She's slow to trust him. But I'll prove to you that I am your ally, Sir Richard said. Mama Io might as well have been my own great-grandmother. Rapunzel's mother laughed mirthlessly, and her eyes narrowed. Rapunzel knew Sir Richard was in danger and leapt out of bed to stand in between them. Well, let's go visit this woman you spoke of. What was her name, Mother? You never mentioned her name. But her mother wasn't looking at her. She was looking past her, unblinkingly, at Sir Richard. She wasn't your great-grandmother, boy. She was like so many night maidens of her generation, forced to neglect her own to suckle brats like you, paid to be stand-in mothers by wealthy women who couldn't be bothered to raise their own children. My own mother watched as her mother coddled and nurtured a baby she did not birth, all so she could earn enough money to support her family. Barely. Sir Richard clenched his jaw but said nothing. Rachel's eyes danced Rachel. I'm tired today, guys. Rapunzel's eyes danced between the two of them as they stared at each other. Well, she said calmly, like I said, Sir Richard is my friend, and he's coming along whether you like it or not. You won't even give him a chance. I've had my fill of chance giving. Richard took a deep breath. I'll prove I'm your ally, and if I ever betray you, I implore you to blind me and cut out my tongue. Sir Richard! Rapunzel exclaimed. Her mother's gaze never left his, and her lip curled into a sly smile. I like your style, Richard, but I've got an even better idea. Oh dear, I don't know if you can hear them, but those are tornado sirens. I really hope the mic is not picking them up because that would be really annoying. I'm on 4, right? Yes, number 4. What is your ultimate dream for your writing future? To make money off my books, I guess. But a lot of people say they don't want to, turn what they love into a career because then it's like a job and is not as enjoyable. But if I can continue to write the things that I want to write at a pace that isn't, writing a book a year, because write a book a year. That's hilarious. But somehow, if I can make money from my books and YouTube, just me being the creative, artistic person that I am, I've gone through many artistic and creative endeavors, and these two are the ones that I think are the ones I'm going to stick with, the ones I've had the most success with. So if I could just keep doing that, bam! And maybe someday when I'm like 80 years old, when my writing is good enough, you'll see my name on the list of best fantasy writers, best sci-fi writers, our favorite women fantasy sci-fi writers, or like something like that, or like female black writers, or like black writers that you simply must read for fantasy and sci-fi, something like that. That would be super dope. This rain is wild. Number 5, name a time that you stepped outside of your comfort zone and tell us why. This needs to be a video all on its own. But there was a time around 2015-ish that I wrote erotica. I think I was finishing up my first novel, and I don't know what sidetracked me, but I was like, I'm gonna write erotica. I had never read erotica. I'm not a smut reading or writing person, but the person I was with at the time, who honestly didn't know what he was talking about, was like, hey, you should write erotica because that makes a lot of money. I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess I could try, and I wrote it under a pen name. And I am embarrassed of all of the things that I have written, even though one of the stories was picked up by a publishing house. So yeah, I wrote erotica once. Number 6, share a positive writing memory. And there are so many. So one of my writer friends from college, Elizabeth, we were in the same novel writing class, and I was writing The Adventures and Shenanigans of Bastian Falco, and she was writing The Bookman. And I remember we were just fangirling over each other's stories all semester and even past the semester. Like, we continued being each other's critique partners for those stories, and I remember like she was like shipping the two main characters, and we would write like quirky, snarky comments on like our critiques. We'd like print out copies of our stories and then switch them and then write quirky, snarky comments. And we pretty much like helped each other's stories grow. Obviously there were more people in this writing circle, but yeah, I mean, obviously we're not writing those stories anymore. She's writing, I think it's called The Remarkable Retirement of Edna Fisher, which sounds like it's going to be a great read. It has like, she calls it the chosen grandma story because like all the chosen stories are like teenagers. Have you ever heard of a chosen grandma? They're wizards. I can't wait until she finishes it. And then Bastian Falco, that's the book that I published in 2015. I look back on those times very fondly because we both had so much fun writing those stories and like reading each other's stories like as new developments came along, as we wrote new chapters. It was nice. Then, if you have a finished product already, read us one of your best reviews. If you don't have a finished product out, then read something positive written by a critique partner or beta reader. One sec. So, I know the tag says one review, but I want to read two in particular because they come from two very different perspectives. Once I start reading them, then you'll understand. The first one, and obviously this is for Fairy Tales and Space Dreams. The first one is, first, it's always a delight to read stories centered around a diverse cast. Second, that cover, swoon. Jasmine Shea Townsend does a great job with voice. Each character's perspective is unique, identifiable, and a perfect fit for their respective tale. These stories are a fun read, but still have some heavier, yet important themes woven through them. As a Black woman, I especially appreciated the details that incorporated real-life issues with the magical, as seen in Snow White. Heck, I loved a lot of the details, period. It's not often that we get to read diverse descriptions of Black women. I really love the way hair in particular is described, and how there are different hairstyles depicted throughout the book. It was tough choosing a favorite because fantasy is always number one in my heart, but I was pleasantly taken by Omega Star Genesis. So it's a tie between that and Rapunzel, the Night Maiden, for me. I felt the cast in both stories were particularly distinct and well developed. Definitely recommend you get your hands on this book. This next one, when I read this, I almost cried. I pretty much cried, but okay, this is the next one. This was honestly incredible. First of all, I absolutely loved the writing style. The best adjective I can think of is magical. The words used and the natural melody to the sentences was put together so beautifully. The style really suited the fantasy stories, but certainly wasn't out of place for the sci-fi. It just added an extra beautiful element to it. It made the worlds really come alive and the characters pop off the page. I found every single story fascinating. Oh my god, my hair looks awful. Why didn't you guys tell me? I found every story fascinating. I was invested in each one from its very first page, and I had the hardest time setting it down without finishing the story. The only thing I wasn't over the moon in love with was that I wished the stories were longer, which isn't exactly a negative. I don't tend to read many short stories and gravitate towards longer novels, so I felt like I wasn't getting enough. They still felt like completed stories, but I loved the stories and I just wanted more and more and more. I don't want to comment too much on the racial importance of these stories because as a white person living in a predominantly white area, I don't think I'm able to add to the conversation. But as a reader, I loved how refreshingly different and lovely it was to see so many Black characters described so beautifully. Representation and diversity is something that needs to be improved in most stories. And when some authors do add people of color, they don't get nearly as much development and focus. But in these short stories, the character's race was described as a part of their beauty. It wasn't simply, this character is Black. It was describing the beauty of the skin color and their hair and their faces and everything that went along with their race. And it wasn't done in a way that distracted from the story. It was told so naturally. Although I am not a person of color, I can't relate to the lack of representation. I can only imagine how this would make young readers who can relate feel. I read the ebook and can't wait to get my hands on a physical copy to have on my shelves forever. I loved it, and I'd love to read many more stories by this author. If you like magic, incredible writing, beautiful style, representation, interesting characters, or great stories, I highly recommend this book. Honestly, I still have trouble believing that something I wrote warrants such good reviews. And like all these reviews, I think there are like 8 reviews on Goodreads. Yes, there are 8 reviews, and I just makes me feel really, really good. Like I'm actually good at the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I also have room to grow, so I can only get better from here, and that's... And the last question is, give a shout out to 3 author tubers you love and why. So the first one I will shout out is author Justin J. His YouTube channel is The Otherside, where you can actually find like the audiobook version of his book, The Otherside, which is awesome. And he's going to start doing like authory book-ish type skits, which I think is awesome. So you should definitely check out the first one that he did. And TehBuggy, who is awesome and delivers awesome content, really helpful book reviews. Just go watch. And lastly, Yumi Yamamoto, who I've recently started watching, and I recommend... Well, the first one I watched was her video on fantasy tropes, because I'm a big sucker for lists like that, like favorite or least favorite X tropes relating to fantasy or sci-fi mostly. And then I highly recommend her video on relatability and why readers and reviewers use it as a crutch. So if I said your name, tag, you're it. I tag you to do this tag and have fun. But yeah, that's it. That's the tag. Super shout out to LCT-Comics and Casian Holly. Thank you so much for being in the unicorn and Fae nobility tier of my Patreon. Thank you, Savy, for tagging me. Thank you, CassTeaElle, for making the tag. Likes and subscribes help me out super a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!